Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday. So, folks, my name's Tim Richardson. I serve here with RV Wholesalers and help them out with some of the marketing kind of things. But we had a guru that used to do these a year ago or so, and then they asked me to step in. So it's been fun. I've been excited to be able to help folks and learn about RVs the last few years. Been doing a lot of camping myself. I think ever since I started when I was 3, my dad built an RV. Well, I took a truck and put a topper on it, built a whole little RV on top of it. And the crazy thing was that we were out camping in British Columbia, and this is one of the few memories I have. And I remember going to sleep one night. We pitched our tents, and we had this little camper topper. I got scared and asked my mom, "Can we just sleep in the little RV thing and let the older kids stay out there?" And thankfully we did, because the next morning we found bear tracks around our so it saved my life. So I'm really grateful that there's RVs. So anyways, I was just stalling for a few minutes, let people but go ahead and find the chat area, folks, and do a little shout out where you're calling in from, mobile connecting in from, or whatever it is. And like to say hi. Greetings to Barbara in South Carolina, Melissa, New Jersey. Hello. Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us on Saturday. And while we're waiting for some of those to come in, I want to introduce you to Dustin Bray. He's our expert, our resident expert. He's helped a lot of people get into RVs and knows a lot of seen a thing or two, as they say. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to hear some of your stories. Thanks for being willing to share and answer questions for folks. So
no problem.
Yeah, let's say hi, Steve, out in Arizona. Bob in Missouri. We have Michelle in South Carolina. Nita in Arizona. A couple of Arizona. Yep. Anna, Noel, thanks for joining us in Montana. You guys probably have snow already. Had some snow here in Cleveland, and Dustin's out of the Columbus area. Mm-hmm. Bell Fountain, not too far from Columbus.
Working from home today.
Yeah. Alexandra's in California. No snow out there, I bet. Johnny in Georgia. Cool. Janine. All right, great. Well, thanks, guys. I don't want to take too much more time, but that's the chat area. That's where we want you to throw in questions. If anything that pops up as we're going through, we have kind of these 5 big buying mistakes we want to step through. So we may say, hey, we're going to get to that when we talk about extended service contracts and warranties at the end, number 5 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, just shoot them in there. We'll keep an eye on these, and we're going to have some fun today. Learning a lot about RVs. Our goal is, and hopefully we'll get from one of the owners, but he was a school teacher, and his goal was, hey, Tim and Dustin, can you guys just educate people? It's like, we can't sell RVs to everybody. There's 600,000 RVs going to be this year, and lots of people are buying RVs. We can only do a little piece of that, but let's equip people so no matter where they end up needing to buy their RV, they don't get ripped off and taken advantage of. And mm-hmm. So that's the goal, is to help you guys. And let's jump right in. So first big buying mistake, it is not asking for the out-the-door price. You want to talk about that? I'll get a nice little slide up here.
Yep, absolutely. So basically the number one, and why we list it first, is there's about a dozen other things that can happen when you don't ask for the out-the-door price. And it makes it very, very hard for a customer to be sure that they're getting a fair price, okay? Because a listed price on an RV is about as useful as a listed price on a used car, right? It in essence can be a made up number. Okay. So it can look really, really good. It can look really, really high. It can look really, really low, but that's not the price you're paying. Almost invariably, the price listed, painted on the windshield, is not the price you actually pay. So what I tell people this, I mean that you need to ask for what is the price that I'm going to be signing off on to get this unit in my name. And that allows you then, if you ask for that up front, if that is how you're going to get your pricing, then you have the ability now to compare apples to apples versus other dealerships, versus other brands, versus other makes of RV. I know for a lot of people, as they get into it for the first time, they look around and they see, well, there's like 4 or 5 different like models, and they all have very similar floor plans. They all look the same, but they're all different names and they all have different prices. Why is that? Well, that's how RV manufacturers stop their own dealerships from killing themselves, is by having 4 or 5 different brands so that they can all advertise them separately and they're not competing versus one another. When that happens, now you have autonomy from dealerships to set pricing however they want on some of those units. And unfortunately, we are finding more and more with the demand this year that can be extremely dangerous, I guess. I don't. That's probably maybe a little too scary of a word, but it can be damaging for the customer. Okay, in a seller's market like we're currently in, I think it's more important than ever to take your time to do your due diligence and making sure that you're getting a fair price. And it starts by asking for that out the door price.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was surprised, like you said, the last month or two, about 2 months, I've been probably in 4 or 5 of the different manufacturing facilities. They let us come in with video cameras, and I had a couple questions we'll talk about later about quality and different things. I wanted to really get in there and see what was going on. But that's what I was surprised. Like, wait, why is there... we were in the Rockwood factory, for example, and I saw Flagstaffs coming out the door. Like, wait, and then I, clicked like, oh, that's what Dustin was saying. Yeah, there's multiple brands under one, exact same trailer, just different names, so that they can have multiple dealerships in it. Yeah, so I think when you're just getting in, and we'll pop up a question here in a little bit, like how many of this is your first time buying an RV. But you kind of really got to figure out what floor plan, right, works best for you and your family. I mean, do you need a set of bunks, for the kids, a little bunk room, or do you just want a Murphy bed that folds up and out of the way if it's a small trailer? Just kind of figure out where you want your kitchen, and then there's so many, like you said, just multiple brands, multiple names, but it's really the same trailer, so same type of build and everything. And like 70% of all the parts come from one manufacturer, as far as all the accessories, called Lippert Manufacturing, and they create everything that goes into the people that assemble them and build the brand. So so that's good. But as you were talking about some of those things, you don't want to be caught off guard. So if you know what that end price is going to be, that means they shouldn't be surprising you when you get to the end, and you're signing that final paperwork with like, oh, what is that fee? Or why, for example, in Ohio, tax, or what is it, dock and title fee. Well, in Ohio, that's about $295.
Yep.
And that's the fee that the state of Ohio requires to handle the paperwork and issue the title and all that. So it's fine if you know that that's going to be added on. So you just figure that in. And sales tax. And how does it work for sales tax? The state that you
so where you're titling your RV is where you should be paying sales tax. You should never be paying it twice. You're not paying in, like, let's say we sell a lot nationwide. So just recently, North Carolina came up as a location. I'm not going to charge, like, we wouldn't charge state sales tax in Ohio, knowing that you're going to have to title it in North Carolina, then you'd be paying again. You're going to pay at your local. So the best way to figure that is look up your county, because for most states, it's county by county as far as how much you're going to pay in sales tax. I know, like in Ohio, it's all over the map. Every county's got a different sales tax amount. Yeah.
So don't forget about that when you're figuring out your price for your RV and budgeting and so forth. But that's just one example. But I have made a list here of hidden fees. Let me hide this so you can see a little bit better.
Yeah, there we go.
The first one I have on this list is PDI. Can you explain what that is, Dustin?
Yeah. So PDI is pre-delivery inspection. Okay, it's a really common fee that we see. It's also a really common process. It should happen with every RV, right? There's basically two ways that RVs are sold. One, they're pre-ordered in bulk quantities. Say, if a local dealer stocks 2 or 3 brands, they'll buy their most popular units in duplicate or triplicate and have them available on the lot to show with different options and then sell from their available stock. They're not going to show you those unless they've already been inspected and making sure everything's in working order. Okay. And the only other option would be custom ordering, in which case they would do the same thing. Like our dealership, we're going to have an available stock and then also our delivered or sold stock. All of those are going to be inspected the exact same way, because you don't want to use an analogy, you wouldn't open a furniture store where half the furniture was scratched, ripped, or stained, right? Right. So the same things with RVs. When you're having, like, if you have stock units, even if they're not sold yet, you want them to be in tip-top condition. It's basically your showroom. You have to make sure it's perfect. So why we list this one isn't because it shouldn't be included. It's because it depends on how much you're paying for it. And again, you should be fully aware of any fees you're paying before you agree to purchase. So that's why that out-the-door price is so important. Okay, if you're going to be charged for this, you should know about it up front. We disagree that you should be charged for something that the dealership is going to do with every unit either way. Okay, that's basically dipping for more money, because what happens during these pre-delivery inspections is a dealership is going to walk through, like for ours, we have, I think it's over 100-point list of inspection items that we're going to go through on every new unit that comes to us. And anything that is faulty, anything that isn't right, anything that needs to be replaced, we are going to charge back to the factory, not to the customer, to the factory, because it was their responsibility to have it right when it got to us. And they make it right. They pay us for any work that we have to do. So if you're being charged for a PDI, if you're being charged for that delivery inspection, you're not only paying for it, but the factory is also paying for it. So the dealership's making out on both ends. They're actually making a profit instead of breaking even. And it should just be a reparations essentially from the factory.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty involved inspection. I've been at the shop and walked by some of these trailers undergoing inspection. The guys are up there with their iPads taking video. They're clicking off the 100+ different things. One time I got soaked because I was standing up there with a hose going over all the vents, air conditioner with water to make sure it didn't leak inside. I mean, they do definitely something you want done.
Yeah.
And make sure that you have done. But what have you seen some people that have come to you to buy an RV that have said, hey, I was getting a quote from another place or different things, or I got to the end and I found some of these, all of a sudden this PDI thing showing up? Like, so, what kind of numbers are we talking about? I guess that's what I'm curious. Like, what?
I mean, I had one lady specifically, I know she ended up backing out of a deal with a local dealer that she was working with, because when she went to pick up, she said she basically got run through, she called it the money machine. And when she went to pick up, they had another invoice for her of repair work that had to be done during the PDI. They had an invoice for the factory transport that for whatever reason they didn't include in her financing. They basically tried to charge her all the fees as a separate cash purchase instead of as part of the finance deal. And none of them were disclosed until she went to take possession. And that is the problem, right? It's not that you're paying for some of these things. It's that you're unaware that it's happening. And that's where we are trying to educate people in terms of what should you expect to pay for and what's reasonable. She said that their PDI was they were going to charge her like $2,000. Now, if you just went by like a straight, like even like at an, what do you call it? Like service hours, right? Mm-hmm. Normal PDI for us takes 3 to 4 hours, somewhere in there. And even assuming a high rate or like a standard industry rate of $140 an hour for service on an RV, that would still only be a few $100s, not $2,000. So they were actually trying to get her for the repair work that they did too.
That's crazy. So they were kind of double dipping. They were probably getting the warranty money eventually by getting her money immediately cover the warranty. Man. Yeah, because
if you look at some of the pricing too, why I tell people to get the out-the-door price is you'll see these lists of, like, on a good out-the-door pricing, you're going to see everything that you're paying for, right? Whether it's dock and title, sales tax, the factory freight fee, which we'll touch on in a second. Those things are all going to be included, right? Now, if you're comparing apples to apples, if somebody else is telling you, well, unit's going to be $4,000 cheaper here, but now they've got a $4,000 pre-delivery inspection, are you really paying less? You're paying it in someplace else. So every business is obviously free to price how they want, and it takes a certain amount of money, obviously, for them to make a profit and be in business. So it's not necessarily disparaging an individual dealer. It's more about the transparency. They need to be transparent with what you're paying for.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask, like Dustin said, ask for that out the door price and ask for it in writing. I mean, and just say, hey, if this isn't the number that matches when I go to pick it up and sign the final financing paperwork,
right,
then I want my deposit back. Because that's kind of how you're kind of stuck at that point. It's like you waited 10 weeks or whatever it is for it to arrive. You got your family there, they're excited. You know, you've got the deposit's been paid. I mean, you're very vested at that point. Like, what are you going to do? Just because all of a sudden they pop up, oh, well, you definitely wanted this, or make you feel guilty. Seems like some of them do that, where, well, of course you wanted us to do this inspection, right? Like, you know, and it's going to be $500. At that point, you're so vested, you know, a lot of times you just cave. So.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. Like you just brought up is a perfect point, and why it's more. We've heard more of it this year than any other time is with the lead times that we're seeing to get these RVs. It's people are having to wait so long. They know that they're in for a long wait because of the factory lead times. That by the time you're ready to sign paperwork, all you want to do is leave with your RV. You can't wait. And the dealers, if they don't tell you about that stuff until then, now what are you going to do? Are you going to tell them no? Now that you have a deposit done, everything's ready, the RV is finally in sight, and now you're sprung with hidden fees. That's a problem. So that's why we're trying to shine a light on that, is that is, in our opinion, unethical to not disclose the fees. There are fees that you're going to pay some fees, but you should be disclosed and told what you're paying for. And the next one's a perfect example, the factory transport fee. Factory. Like, that is a non-negotiable. It's going to be, you pay for that on every food good, on every hair care product, on every office chair. You pay for that on every product you ever receive. If you go into a big box store and you buy $200 in groceries, you've spent money on factory freight or fuel surcharges. Okay. Transportation is not free, and it's a huge part of our economy. But the difference is that if I buy $200 worth of groceries, I might pay $1.50 worth of that is actually fuel surcharges or freight fees. But when you're talking about an RV that can't be moved on a truck and a semi on a train, it has to be moved one-off with a tow vehicle. It's a lot more expensive, and you are going to have to pay that. It's part of buying the RV, because they come to a dealer and the dealer has to pay for that. And depending on the distance at which it had to travel, that could, if they didn't pass along that portion of the profit or that portion of the cost, that could put a dealership under. So that you have to have the factory freight fee. What we're trying to get people to realize is that it should be disclosed how much it is, and it should be basically a flat rate, right? So we figure, and you can do this yourself. We talk about it before with using Google Maps. To figure out mileage. But let's say you went from where most RVs are manufactured in Elkhart or thereabout, Indiana, to your local dealership, $1.50 to $2 a mile, somewhere in there, and realize that most of those are flat rates that are negotiated with the dealer and the factory, and that's just what they pay to get them transported. But that being said, for most people, no matter where you are in the States, the closer the dealership or wholesaler is to the manufacturer, the less in factory freight fees you're going to pay. So that's just part of doing the business. But again, we're more talking about it being disclosed and you understanding that that's part of, and Michelle, you just nailed it, is that if you buy from closer to a factory or to the factories, then you're probably going to pay less in factory freight. Now, on the flip side, if your physical location is a long way from Indiana, right? Let's say you live in Washington, delivery then is part of that. If you want to have it delivered, you're obviously free to pick up RVs from dealerships. But if you're talking delivery, at some point you're paying for the transportation. They don't move for free, and it's expensive to move them. I was talking to a gentleman the other day about cars. Like, you could have a car shipped cross country for $600. Well, you can put 13 cars on a on a transportation semi and move them to dealerships all over the place. And then they'll backhaul. So they're basically making profit both ways as a transportation service. So it's very cheap to move an individual car. Whereas an RV, there's no such thing. You can't hook up 6 RVs in a train and pull them down the road. It won't work. So to get them where you need them to go, it is pricey. They are expensive to move.
Yeah, folks, we are recording this and we'll send you guys a replay about 2 hours after. You'll get an email from us saying, here's the link to the replay. And I'm going to download or put up a place for you to download a PDF. So I took the 5 hidden fees that we're seeing kind of commonly, and I made a little training PDF for you. So it's a little 1-pager. So I'm going to put that up so you can download that right now. So anytime, just download that. That's for you. So you don't have to remember all these, but yeah, no, that's important. So we wanted to make sure we covered that. And thanks, Dustin, for all the input on that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so if you're in Florida, for example, 1,000 miles, say, from Elkhart, maybe not be that, but and you saw a charge 1,500, probably reasonable. 2,000, you might want to start the flag going up. And then if you see stuff over $2,000 for that fee, then you know that there's probably being inflated or, things like that. So just, yeah, good. So let's take a look at I did that poll to see how many people are new. And believe it or not, 88%, this is your first time buying, which is cool. A lot of times it's more like 70-30 when we do some of these trainings. So I won't spend much time on this, but this idea of this buying mistake of not getting the most for your trade-in is kind of common right now.
Yep.
And what we're recommending is what, Dustin? Just go ahead and...
I would, if I was in a customer's shoes right now and I was trying to sell an RV, I would be tickled because the private market is incredibly hot. Sell it yourself. No matter what, I cannot tell you enough that you're not going to get the kind of value out of a trade-in that you're not going to get the same value as you would as if you sell it yourself. I've seen used RVs listed at and above high book pricing, which I've never seen that before. You don't see that with cars ever, no matter the condition, right? No matter how well maintained they are, you never see that with a used vehicle, and let alone with a used RV. So a huge issue for people right now is that if they're going to buy an RV and they're trying to trade in is very convenient, right? Trade-in is easy because you're dealing directly with the dealership. They're going to take the RV. You don't have to deal with a private sale, all the paperwork and bank work that's involved there. But I'm going to tell you that you're going to get way more value if you sell it yourself. We've got people turning them over in a week and getting above market value on their used units, which again is unheard of.
Yeah, so things like RV Trader, Facebook Marketplace, all those.
Absolutely. eBay even. I mean, heck, that's where we sold our first online sale was eBay. But I can't recommend enough for those people who are trying to sell or move on from a used unit to this right now is the time. Sell it yourself. Now, on the flip side, if you're a buyer, be very cautious because there's just an inundation of sold or of used RVs on the market from private sellers. And one of the issues you run into there is that, let's say it's only a 2-year-old unit and it looks like a great deal. The issue is you might be saving a few $1,000s buying the used unit, but now you're buying a used unit for only a few $1,000s less than you could buy a brand new unit with new features, new amenities, and more importantly, service.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing. We were camping. We did a little Halloween camping with some friends, and we had 3 of our trailers, theirs being the third one, Chris and Christy, and theirs was used, it was about 7 or 8 years old. And they were looking at our brand new Wildwood that we had there. And they're like, man, this has everything that we have. It has this and this. And they asked how much that costs. And I said, oh, that's only $16,000. And they said, well, we paid $15,500 for our used one. And that was 3 or 4 years ago. And it had less features, didn't have all the new Bluetooth and this and that. And they couldn't believe it. So, I mean, yeah, definitely now with as hot as that used market is, and and the demand is.
And no better illustration of the demand for them right now than the fact that we can't seem to buy a used unit. Like we normally carry a pretty good selection of used RVs, and I've hardly seen anything. We can't even make an offer that's going to be compared to the high book values. We can't buy them for that. Most dealers aren't going to be able to buy at high book value and then have to sell above high book value a used unit. They'll never move it. They'll sit on it for its life. So the return of profit for the dealership is terrible. Whereas selling it privately, you're going to get that high end value, and it's still going to be less than buying a new unit for whoever is buying it. A lot of the first time RVers want to dip their toes in the water without spending on a brand new unit, or they may want to buy something smaller and see how they like it before they move up to buy a bigger unit. So again, the market's there for people to sell them privately. And the number one recommendation for people that I have made and I've seen work for a lot of people is casting a broad net for selling. I know we have a lot of Midwesterners here who, as we're rolling into winter, like, well, I really want to try to do the trade in because I'm going to have a heck of a time selling it in the winter. And what they're not realizing is that just because it's freezing and cold and terrible in Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania, it's not that way in Florida and Alabama and Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, all those states, Arizona. I mean, we saw how many people in here right now are from Arizona. There are tons of people that love to RV and they do all year camping, and there's always a demand in those southern states for RVs. So I would tell you that if you are in the Midwest or in the northern states and you're trying to move on from an RV, list it to the southern states. People will drive 3 or 4 states happily to come and get an RV if it's a good deal and it's the right fit for them.
And it's kind of cool that this is happening where the demand is so high on the used market too, because I think it takes pressure off you as someone getting ready to get into RV for the first time. It's like, you try to find, just like when you build a house, it's like you want to build your dream house. You want to build it just right. Sometimes it's better just to jump in and then camp for a season and then figure out, like the RV isn't an end all be all. Like it's the experience that's going to start with your family and the sitting around the campfires and, the stories and all this, that's going to happen no matter what kind of RV you're in. So don't, especially now as the queues are getting fuller and fuller and the production time is taking longer and longer. I'm concerned that people will wait too long after Christmas and then kind of miss the next season. So I guess what I'm saying is, as hot as the used market is, even if you're in it for a year, you sell it, you're not going to be out money. Right. In fact, we were just got back home last night about midnight from a 3-day RV trip that I took in a Class C motorhome with our host for our virtual RV show. And I'll put a little plug in because we took a Christmas trip from Cleveland all the way to Nashville, and we saw all these fun Christmas sites. And, we're exploring this RV, just having fun with it. We took our co-host, David, he's a magician and comedian, and we just had a lot of good times rolling down through there. And the place that we had a friend that said, hey, you can just park it at our place. And so he came out and looked at it the next morning. He's like, mine's only a year old. Right. I know you have that big book. And so he wants to know what his is worth right now because he knows it's a great time to sell. So he's going to recoup his investment back pretty much and be able to get into something brand new. It's only been a year for him. And so his wife came out and took a tour of it. Yeah, that's awesome.
And that actually answers, sort of goes right to a couple of questions that we've got here. And that's, how do you know a fair price? That's Bob asking, how do you know what a fair price is to pay for a used unit? NADA guides. Okay.
Do you mind if I put up your contact information, Dustin?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. If you don't have a physical copy of the NADA, there is an online site where you can go to get evaluations on used units. We use 2 things. There's high book and low book pricing. Okay. Low book pricing is where most dealerships are going to resell a used unit. And that is why if you're able to get high book value, you're usually looking at vastly exceeding what you're going to get as a trade-in offer. Now, again, that's dependent on this market. As long as the used market stays this hot, I will continue to recommend people to sell them on their own. I want them to get as much money as they can back out of their used units. And I know I can't give it to them. I can't give it to them and stay a profitable business. So I would rather that they got their money. And at the same time, you're helping somebody else get into the market. Then another question, does that information apply to any class of RV? Steve's asking that. Yes, that will apply to any class. Obviously, the more money that is spent up front, so you might see more swing and gap in terms of low book and high book if you're looking at a really high-end Class A or Class C motor home where you're talking $150,000 to $200,000 units. There might be more swing as far as high book and low book, but in general, yes, this information will apply to anybody. And then Melissa asked if she still owed what it was worth. Would the trade-in just seems easier? Does all that information still jive? I would still recommend you try to sell it privately, because then you can be out from under that loan before you get in on another one. We'll cover more on the financing side later, but I don't want to see a customer upside down going into a new unit again. I would much rather you sold your RV, especially if you're going to get what it's worth out of it. You might be able to pay off the remaining balance and then start fresh. So just some information, just some answers to some questions there.
Yeah, no, that's good. And Leo asked a question too. We're going to, you'll be working all day today, right, Dustin? So
yeah, I'll be here until 5.
We'll get the polling questions over to you for Leo so that you can talk to him about the Thor and different things. So very good.
For anybody who's worried about missing portions of this, again, that replay link will come out in a couple of hours. You'll be able to watch it back as many times as you need to, start to finish.
And then we also put a lot of training and different walkthroughs up on the RV Wholesalers YouTube page. So if you just go to youtube.com, type in RV Wholesalers and subscribe to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button, and you can see a whole collection of webinars and trainings and so forth. So good questions, folks. Thanks for popping them in there. Yeah, keep them coming. So I want to talk about terms and understanding those and financing and all that. So if you want, what we could do, let's go over to our Dallas Henry. He's one of our specialists that he's been here quite a while, helping folks with the money side of things. So let's see here, see if we can, we recorded this earlier in the sales room. So let's see if you can enlighten us a little. Here we go. Dallas.
Hey guys, Dallas Henry here. I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about financing an RV, a couple of the tips, tricks, things you might need to know. One big thing a lot of people don't know is when it comes to RVs is term. Term with recreational vehicles can be a lot longer than what most people are used to, especially financing cars and things like that. One big thing to remember is generally they'll go out to sometimes 20 years. I know it seems crazy to some people, but it's quite a long time. They want to make that payment really manageable. Now with recreational vehicles, if you have pretty good credit, longer term often means better rate, which is kind of flips everything on its head of whatever everybody really knows. Again, when it comes to cars and mortgages and things like that. Because generally with those type of items, the shorter term generally means better rate. Okay? With RVs, remember, that's not always the case. If you got pretty good credit, normally the longer term, better rate. So that's one big thing to remember when you're going to finance a recreational vehicle. So keep that in mind as you go. Again, just to recap, longer term, good credit, typically a little bit better rate. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of that longer term. Even if you want to pay it off a little earlier, that's okay. They are simple interest loans. At least they should be. With all of our lenders, they are simple interest loans. So you can pay the loan off a little bit earlier. Okay, if you guys so choose you want to do it. And you can apply more money to principal, that'll have you paying at least a lot less interest over the term of that loan, whatever the term you decide it is. Once you lock in a deal with a bank or lock in a deal with a dealer, you can change how fast you pay it off. You can change how much money you throw towards the interest and the principal and things like that. One thing you can't change is the rate. So remember that. You always want to get the best rate, and a lot of times that is longer term. Okay. Another thing to remember is don't ever tie your recreational vehicle loan to your house. A lot of people think, hey, really good rates with my home equity loan. Put a lot of work into this house. I want to use that equity. Not a real good, wise idea. I'm not a financial analyst by any stretch of the imagination, but what I will tell you is when the proverbial hits the fan, and things happen. As so many people know in 2020, there's a lot of things that have happened this year that no one expected to happen. One thing that can happen is you can lose your job. You can have time off, things that you might not be getting the money you thought you were getting. So in that situation, the last thing you want to have happen is you not be able to make your RV payment and that be tied to your house, because now if something happens, they're not coming to just get your RV, they're coming to get the house now too. So don't risk your family, don't risk your livelihood, don't risk your finances by doing something like that. It's something to really remember.
Yeah. You want to add to that, Dustin?
So I know a lot of people, when they're getting into the buying an RV, especially this is really good information for the folks that are here today, because we have a lot of first time RV buyers, is what he said to begin with there, as far as like the loan terms, right? So the longer the term, the lower the rate. That can be very confusing for people who have come from a background of buying cars and those shorter term payoffs, where you usually get a better deal if you're paying off in a short amount of time, if you take a small loan and make high payments. What I would recommend for most people is really exploring those payoff options. So even for a cash customer that was walking in ready to write a check for a brand new RV, I would still recommend that they finance. A couple of reasons. One, for anybody that has money, the best way to have money is to keep it. So keeping your assets liquid is a better idea than paying off upfront. Why I say that is that your financial situation, as this year has shown a lot of people, can change drastically through no fault of your own. So my normal recommendation is, even for that customer, is let's plan for a year-long payoff. So what we would do instead of doing like full term, we would still give you the same loan and plan on paying off after 1 year. Most of those recreational loans allow after 1 year to either refinance or pay off in full at no penalty. That's a very important question to ask when you're going to finance. What are the early payoff fees? What are the refinance fees? You want a no penalty loan. In other words, your only obligation through your original lender is 1 year of payments. So whether it's paying aggressively up front during that year or just making a lump sum payment after the first year, either way is going to get you out the door with a lot less money on the loan. Now, why I recommend those long-term loans too is that even if, let's say you had budgeted and you knew you could pay it off in 10 years of payments at that interest rate, that interest rate at 10 years will be significantly higher, or can be, than it would be at 20 years. So let's plan to do 20 years and pay it off in 10. So just make bigger monthly payments than are scheduled, knowing that you're paying off aggressively. Why that's a useful strategy is, one, you're getting the benefit of the long-term lower interest rate, and now you have flexibility. You've essentially built yourself a safety net payment that's going to be half what you can afford. So let's say 3 years in, who knows, surgery or just a slow year economically, as far as like people that are working in sales, right? You would have a slower down year and you just didn't want to have as much tied up in your payments. Now you have that option to go down to that lower payment and still be on schedule to make your payoff. And then you can revert back when you're in a position to do so. But I like the idea of giving people that flexibility and offering them. Our goal for every customer is to get them out the door paying as little as possible, right? It's a good deal for us, as long as it's a good deal for our customer. So we're trying to work in our customer's best interest to get them out the door paying as little as possible and making sure that it's something they can afford and that they're not stretching themselves beyond their financial needs. Because again, we understand RVs are amazing. That's why we do what we do. We love the community spirit. We love the interaction. We love the ability to travel on our own terms that RVs provide. But when we look at it at the end of the day, an RV for most people is really a luxury expense. And there's no reason why that, as Dallas said, that shouldn't be tied to your long-term success or your long-term financial success. So
ability.
Yeah, again, that's why we recommend against tying it in with home loans. You should never tie in a luxury item or a luxury expense with an essential expense. So we understand that as much as we love RVing and we want everybody to have a new RV and get out and enjoy all that the RV can provide for you in terms of flexibility and life and travel and everything that it does, we also don't want you to be in a situation where your finances or your future can be impacted by the purchase. So we're trying to do both. We're trying to help everybody we can. And that's, again, why we do this every weekend, why we do this several times a week, is to educate people so that they're making choices that are good for them.
Well, that kind of leads right into this fourth buying mistake. Some people don't know this big dealer financing secret, and probably should have had you reveal this first, so that made sense some more. But this is a really big deal, I think. And I want you to go ahead and share with folks what it is that, because I didn't realize this until I started doing these webinars with Dallas and some of these guys. And wow.
So a lot of people don't realize that it is a two-way street between us and our financing institutions. In other words, we're giving them business when we're taking our customers and applying for a loan through their bank and getting them funded. They're making profit on the interest rates, obviously. On every payment, they're making money. So that's giving them business. Now, what's the benefit then? Obviously, we have a way to fund purchases, but we also get a dealer reserve, essentially, a lump amount of money based on the amount financed that comes back to us as basically a finder's fee for the business that we're providing to the national lenders.
I always called it a kickback, but it's not. I mean, it's not like
it sounds shadier, right?
Right. But no, it's like a commission or
essentially.
Like a finder's fee.
You're looking at a dealership almost like a salesperson for that bank, right? So they're getting a commission check for providing them the business to finance that, because then essentially the business is in the hands of the lender. That's now their purchase. It's their sale. With that in mind, we get that money. Now, not everybody thinks about it like this, but when our owners started this business and they looked at their pricing model and they looked at how they wanted to do things, when they started building their wholesale pricing, they weren't accounting for any money coming back from a lender to get them to a break-even point, right? They priced as aggressively as they could. Man, I can't get the words out. They priced as aggressively as they could while also being able to meet their bottom line and stay in business and remain profitable for years. Then when they finally sold one through a national lender, they get that sales check. And you've talked about this in the past. Like, what is this? What is this? Why are we getting this money? Almost like a prank. Well, no, that's the dealer reserve. That's the portion of the business that they're giving back to RV wholesalers. Because they never budgeted for that, their plan was, well, this is a way we can incentivize our customers, and we can use this money as a discount and give them an even better deal. And that's what they've done. Now, not everybody's priced the same way, and I can't speak for every dealer in terms of what they need to make per unit to stay in business. So again, I'm not saying everybody has to do it this way, but you should ask, how much of that money can you expect as a discount back, right? When you go to finance through a dealer, realize that they are going to be getting some money back through their lenders, and you should be a part of that. You should have a conversation about that. You will get a lot of weird looks, deer and headlight looks, especially if you're talking just to a sales consultant. But at the point where you're talking to a closing,
they might not even know.
Right. They might be completely aware. You might tell them that
their manager.
Their head might explode, right? They don't know. Like, you're speaking for them. But if you're talking to a financing manager or to a closing officer, they know. They're aware of that bottom line dollar, and they're aware of what they're going to be getting back from the financing. So that's who you need to talk to and find out how much of that are you going to get as a discount for using that financing, because there is money there to be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of hold that card to the end there.
Yep.
So now you guys know.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that, Dustin. That could be, I mean, we're not talking, right, a couple $100 here.
That could be thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It can be thousands of dollars. Like, even on some of the smaller purchase sizes that we have in smaller RVs, $2,000-$3,000 sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but this is all tied together, and realizing that, again, recreational loans, right? It's about the amount that they're assuming that will be accrued over the lifetime of that loan. They can give that money back to the dealership. Because even with an outstanding credit score, recreational loans can be between 5.5% and 6%. And so over the lifetime of a loan, they're going to make their money back. So they give that money out up front. And we're more than willing to offer it as a cash discount. So again, we're not structured to make money off the financing. That's not where our goal was when we started this. So
yeah, that's cool. And I'm glad you explained for the folks earlier, like if you've been saving your whole life, you sold your house, whatever, you're getting into RVing and you want to pay it off with cash so you don't have to waste money on interest. I like your way of, well, do it for a year, front load it all, like pay, like say it's $100,000 RV, pay $95,000 day, first payment, the next 11 payments, just little time, just the minimum amount that you're required to pay. And then you paid a couple $100 in interest and you're way ahead.
A quick example is if you had, let's say, there's a couple of like big toy haulers that we offer. We can get between $5,000 and $6,000 cash financing discounts for doing those. If you paid down aggressively and you only had 12 payments, you have simple interest loan on 12 payments, you might have a few $100s in interest to get $5,000 or $6,000 in discount. Again, we're going to go through the options to make sure that you're getting out the door at the price point where you're going to be happy with it, and that you're, again, in a situation financially where you're the one benefiting.
Yeah. So switching gears. Well, why don't you check for some questions as we get ready to talk about service, because we're going to switch gears here. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about that virtual RV show because I want you guys to come. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have about 25 RVs we're going to walk through. We have some big giveaways. Like we found a PS5 brand new with disc drives that we're going to give away to some family that has kids that want a PS5 that can't get one today. Anyway, so that's going to be on the 16th of December at 12. So just go to virtualrvshow.com. Could you type that in the chat, Dustin? Virtualrvshow.com. And when you go there, you can just register. It's free to register for the drawing. So we're going to be picking names out of there and have a lot of fun. So, but while we were doing that, we were traveling across the country. I really started thinking about service, which we're going to talk about here in a second after some questions. So do you want to address any questions before we head in there?
There's really three. Barbara asked about paying off debt that hasn't hit credit reports yet. It's a complicated question. I can't speak to everybody's individual credit background and what's going on with their finances. What I can tell you is that it depends on how often that's getting refreshed, how often your credit report is being updated. I would tell you that the best person to answer those sorts of questions is going to be somebody like a financing manager. But even them, they may not be able to answer that based on your credit. It's going to be more about your individual situation. So that's sort of a vague way to say, I don't know. I can't really answer that question for you, Barbara. I wish I could. Then on to Alexandra. How much do you recommend putting down? My normal recommendation is about 10% should be the max that you put down. The reason for is if you go beyond that, you may mess with how long you can stretch the terms. Additionally, you can also mess with how much of the dealer reserve is going to be paid out to the dealership. So, and again, that's based on who you're dealing with and how the deal is happening. But like for us, for instance, more than 10% could eliminate the dealer reserve that we're getting back, and therefore we couldn't pass that discount along. If we don't get that money, we can't give the discount based on how we price. If we just can't give a discount if we don't have the dealer reserve coming to us. So I normally recommend no more than 10% down, finance the rest, stretch it as long as possible, and then pay aggressively. Whether it's a 1-year payoff, 5-year payoff, 10-year payoff, but be aggressive on it at that point. So let's say you would save 40% of the cost of the unit. You could put 10% down and then make the other 30% if you wanted on the first payment. But that's not going to affect the rates or your payments, right? But if we paid off 40% up front, we might now be in a 10-year loan where you might have actually higher monthly payments than if you had it stretched for the 15 or 20 years. So go over those options with your sales consultant. Make sure that you're on the same page as far as your strategy for how you want to get paid off. And then, so you were, Melissa asked, so you were asking them to share that kickback with you in a little more discount. That is correct. So the goal being, finding out how much you can expect out of that deal, because again, that's money that we're not accounted for as far as making a profit. That's not how we're structured our business. So you can ask them how much of that money can you get back as a discount to make sure that you're getting some of that, because it's really your business that's going to the lender and not the dealerships.
Yeah, and that works in autos, and yeah, it's not just RV world. So
Wish I had known.
I know, seriously. Where were you guys?
Yep. Wish I had known.
So yeah, so the next area I think people make when they're buying mistakes. Number 5, not checking out service and wait times. This is kind of a big deal. Service. In fact, the owner, David Durnell, one of the founders and owners of RV Wholesalers back in 97, I think. I got him on video up in his office the other day. So he's let's see if we can get him to talk a little bit about service. He actually moved his office up there.
You might want to turn it up
guys,
for this.
Glad to help.
Yeah.
I've kind of been serving people or helping people my entire life. It's kind of how we were raised, I guess you could say, to put other people first, take care of other people. So when we started the dealership, it was sort of a natural for me, especially if you look at my teaching background. I taught for 10 years. I've always enjoyed teaching people new things. I've always enjoyed helping people, both professionally, personally, etc. Taking care of kids and stuff was such a joy, such a pleasure. So when Mike and I opened up this dealership, it just kind of sort of wasn't even a choice. We're going to focus on the people that we sell to. We're going to take care of them. We're going to treat them like family. And again, that's just how we were raised. I remember we'd been selling for a few years, and we had the idea of putting a used unit on eBay, and it did really well. We put another one, and long story short, through the winter months, we had sold all of our used units. And in the spring, we thought, I wonder if people would buy a new unit. So we put a new unit on eBay, and a crazy thing happened. A guy from Iowa bought it. Put another one up. A guy from Texas bought it. And we thought, man, we've stumbled onto something here. And I never will forget my dad came in to check on us, see how we were doing, just to visit. And we were telling him how great this thing was, right? We're going to be able to sell RVs all across the U.S., it appears, through eBay. And I'll never forget, he just kind of looked at us and he said, you guys started selling because of service, right? You did service first? Yeah, of course, Dad. So service most important thing? Yeah. Well, how are you going to service people that aren't even in your state? And it was kind of a low moment, it sort of like sucked the wind out of us. And we kind of regrouped for a couple of days and thought about it, even prayed about it. And then the idea popped in our head, hey, what if we found someone in each person's hometown to take care of them? And fast forward 23 years later, that's our nationwide service network. And now we're able to sell to people all across the U.S., all across Canada, and take care of every single one of them. And I think one of the things we're most proud of is that we've never had a customer not get serviced anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. We've always been able to find someone to take care of them and someone to meet their needs, and
Yeah, that's important. Almost on that little RV trip that we did the last 3 days, almost called the Nationwide Service Network. You're going to laugh because we were shooting videos all day and totally tired. Our co-host, I'm in the little bunk above the cab, and co-host, gets the nice, luxury suite in the back. And there was 2 lights. I could not get them to shut off. They would not shut off. And they were right there, right in my face. I couldn't even sleep. So both of us are looking there's got to be a switch somewhere, we couldn't turn off power to the whole thing because we wanted to have heat and everything. So so anyways, I was just so tired I ended up sleeping. I was like, the next morning I'm calling the Nationwide Service Network. I'm going to have them send out a mobile person if they have to figure out this electrical thing or whatever. So the next day I'm looking around. Finally, I find 3 little hidden light switches underneath the cabinet. I was so grateful I didn't call the Nationwide Network. I would have been so embarrassed. But I'm glad. But that's the thing. It never happens in your backyard, by your local dealer. If you buy from a local dealer or whatever, it's always when you're out camping, So I'm 8-10 hours away from home. and that's when I needed the help. So, but that's pretty cool what they developed.
Absolutely. So that's a huge deal. And why we bring this up is that a lot of people don't really think about that, especially first time RVers. They're, they get super excited, and it's very easy to get really excited about the floor plans and the model and the features and all these things. And you don't really think about the fact that you're about to buy a home that's on a chassis on an axle rolling down the road. And if it can't go wrong, it will. Murphy's Law tells us that something will happen, right? And what happens then? What's the next step? So that's the thing that we try to get people to ask beforehand. It's one of the first things that we're going to explain to you. If you ever call in to RV Wholesalers and talk to a consultant here, one of the first things we're going to talk about is service. Okay. It's near and dear to our hearts. We're going to talk your ear off about service and how it should happen, the process by which it should happen. But it's one of the things we're trying to encourage through these webinars, that people find out and figure out and know what your plan is when something goes wrong. What is your recourse and how does it happen? And plan ahead. Think about how you're going to be traveling and where you'll be, and making sure that you will have access to service professionals that can take care of you. Because I'll tell you right now that most people are going to buy an RV locally, and they don't really RV locally, right? You may buy in the Carolinas, but you have plans to travel to the Rockies and to Yellowstone. And what happens when you're in Montana and you need service? Those are the kind of questions that should be going through your head. How do I make this happen? Now, one thing that you would probably be able to tell them is that one of the most invaluable things about being an RVer and being around other RVers is that it's a nice community. They take care of each other very, very well out on the road. And for the first timers, you will inevitably forget something, whether it's a power cord or a hose or a 90-degree valve, whatever it is, you're going to forget something on one of those trips. And it's nice that there's usually a great community that is going to help you out. But also earning a little bit of handyman status yourself as an RVer, being able to take care of some of those small issues on your own so that you can continue to enjoy your trip. I would say the nightmare story is, like David has told us many times, when they first started to develop this nationwide service network, was having a customer who lived on the East Coast, traveled to Florida. First night at the campground, had scheduled like a week-long family vacation, and the air conditioner is not working, right? And it's spewing water because it's raining, as it does in Florida about every 45 minutes. It's pouring down rain. And they've got water pouring in. Right. And he's thinking, I'm going to have to cancel my trip. That, for a lot of us, it takes, you've got to get approval to take time off from work, and then you get everything together and you make a 2-day drive down, and now you're going to have to cancel and turn around and head back and basically waste 4 days and not get to do any of the family activities. Well, it turns out it was a pretty simple fix. We sent out a mobile repair service, and they literally just rebolted the AC unit to the roof. It had come loose. A couple of bolts were not tightened to a factory spec, and so had come loose. They retightened them, reattached it, fired it right up. No more leak, no more air conditioner issue. We're able to enjoy their trip. Now, if you think about that, the strain that can put on the family, right? When those things happen, it's not like our goal, and why we are so dedicated about service is that we understand it's not just an issue of when something happens that, oh no, I have to get this fixed, right? That's just the thing that has to happen so that everything else bad doesn't go along with it, right? So all that time wasted, you don't get to enjoy the trip, you don't get to that family time. The strain on the relationship between spouses can be immense when there's some issue, especially when you've spent time and energy putting together a trip and a plan, and it falls through. We understand that those things are the things that are really painful. It's not that the air conditioner doesn't work, it's the timing of it. It didn't work when I needed it. And so that's really the heart of why we try to do what we do, but also why we want customers to understand that they need to think about those things before they happen.
Well, then that goes right along with what Jay March was saying about service, is that a lot of these service centers are really backed up, and especially, and some of them are kind of, feisty about like, hey, we're not getting you in here if you didn't buy from us. That's kind of how they put pressure on, buying local. What the service network that RV Wholesalers developed was, it like what Dustin just said. They're utilizing they vetted and are utilizing outside service folks. It may be a specialist that all they do is AC, HVAC, heating and air conditioning, and they're totally equipped and vetted to go in and work on the AC units in a RV. Doesn't mean that it has to be Bob's RV Center doing it. These are different people that I think over 2,918 or something last I checked. All over the country. So Noel was asking what's the contact information. So once you, in this case, with RV Wholesalers, once you have purchased, they give you access to their main number, and it goes into their service department, and then they'll pull it up on their screen. Where are you broke down at, or where are you camping? And then they look at, we have 3 people in this area that could service you. They'll take care of the calls, and the cooler thing too is they'll take care of the payments for warranty work. Say you have something that's covered under warranty, they'll go ahead and pay it first. Normally, when you go into a service center, they'll make you pay for it up front, and then you have to try to get reimbursed from the factory, which is a nightmare of a process unless you have a relationship with the factories like RV Wholesalers does. So anyways, a little bit of how that works, but I want to talk, that leads right into warranties, because that's one last thing. We will just barely touch on this, but should you buy a service agreement? A lot of times, it's not a good idea, but like you said, Dustin, when you're going down the road, appliances don't always hold up like they would normally if they're just sitting in a house. So
right,
all those kind of things. So you want to talk about the 2 types, and then
So yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at service contracts or extended warranties, there's a couple of key things. First are the types, and like you alluded to, there are 2 major ones. There's stated, and then there's exclusionary. So we'll cover both quickly. Stated warranties are those that are a list of stated issues that will be covered, and then exclusionary are a list of things that won't be covered, assuming everything else will be. Oftentimes what we run into, and we personally, we offer exclusionary warranties, and I'll get into why. When a customer goes and they are looking and comparing warranties and extended service contracts and all those things, they're going to see a stated warranty, and it's going to look really nice because they might have a list of 2 or 3 dozen things that are going to be covered, during the stated period of time. And that looks great, as opposed to an exclusionary warranty that is telling you the things that aren't covered. Right. And that has just a negative upfront look to it. Right. These are the things that aren't going to be covered under your warranty. But what you don't realize is that if they're giving you, 20 or 30 items that are going to be covered during the warranty, there are now 10,000 things that can go wrong that aren't covered, versus a stated warranty that is giving you 10 to 20 things that aren't going to be covered. You now have that exclusionary. Sorry, that exclusionary, the 10 to 20 things that aren't covered. Exclusionary then covers everything else. So it's basically a blanket coverage for everything that's not stated, right? That's not in there. In other words, a very simple way, we just try to make it easy. Exclusionary is good. Stated is bad. Stated looks good. It's eye candy. It's a nice looking list. I've even seen stated warranties at other places that I've worked in the past, and they do look nice because it seems like, well, what else could there be? And you don't realize in your head that there are 10,000 things that can happen when you're on the road that aren't part of that list. Because it can even come down to what caused this part to fail. And even if that stated part is covered, if they can prove that something else that isn't covered caused the failure, then they won't cover you. And that's how stated warranties work. So the other one to keep an eye out for is and you saw these, and actually have a better firsthand account of it, but are those lifetime warranties.
Oh yeah.
So lifetime warranties again, it sounds fantastic. It sounds like something you want to be a part of, but what you don't realize is that nothing is free ever. Right? There is no such thing as just free coverage forever. They're going to take care of it for the entire life. A lot of times those are money-making devices for the dealership and for the warranty company, because they're going to mandate that you have it inspected. They're going to charge you for the inspection fees every year, whether there's anything wrong or not. Over the life of the time that you have it, like one of those lifetime warranties, you'll end up paying more than it's worth. By the way we look at it, right? If we did some simple math on it, it's like, what they say, over $900 a year people are paying on those. I mean,
because you're you bring it in, you're getting all these other service items fixed while you're in there, so it's just a moneymaker for them, it seems.
Right. And while we've explored them more, it's not something we're comfortable with doing. And then I guess the last thing, because I want to wrap this up here for them, is that when you're looking at the extended warranties is it sort of goes back to our hidden fees, right? You're never obligated to buy an extended warranty ever. It's not, they can't force you. Nobody can force you to buy an extended warranty on anything. And we believe they should be offered to you. We call it a la carte. That's what I call it anyway. But in other words, the coverages should be broken. It shouldn't be a blanket coverage that you're paying for when not all parts of it are going to apply to the way in which you're going to use the RV or even the type of RV that you have. But instead, we offer coverages that are sort of broken up into sections. So like wheel and tire, right? Somebody who's buying a destination trailer that's going to sit on a lot, on a seasonal lot all year long, on a paid for lot, why would you buy a wheel and tire warranty? Why would you buy an extended warranty that had wheel and tire coverage? It's never moving. It doesn't make sense. So that's an example of you should be able to pick the coverages that make the most sense to you. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that. They will go in and buy an extended warranty that covers sort of everything and not realizing that they'll never make claims on 2/3 of it because it doesn't apply to the way or the type of RV that they purchased.
Cool. Thanks, Dustin.
Yep.
I'm going to pop your contact information up. We're out of time, but I wanted to, if people have any more questions throughout the day, Solomon wasn't able to join us, but Dustin, here's your contact information, extension 133, dbray, rvwholesalers.com. Could you, I know the owners said if we had some new people here today that we could offer them a $500 delivery discount credit. So
good.
If all they have to do to get that, and it's basically just good for today. So I mean, if you're just starting the process, it may not help you right now, but
right.
But if you've been looking and it's like you realize like, hey, we need to get this in so we can have this thing in the spring here, or if we have stuff in stock or whatever for RV wholesalers. So this all they need to do is just email you with the subject 500 or talk about it in the email, and Dustin can hook you up with a delivery credit, because that's the cool thing that you guys deliver to driveways all across America, Alaska, Canada, Hawaii. Even.
Yep.
That's cool. And nice and COVID safe, all sealed and cleaned. And I mean, some people even put them in storage if they're going to get them at a time they're not quite ready for them. Send them right to the storage facility, or come pick it up and drive it back. Like lots of different options. But cool. And appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Wish we could get to more questions, but Dustin will be here the rest of the day to help you out, and next week too. So hopefully we'll see you on our trip to Nashville on the 16th. Join us, and we're going to have some fun together. Lots of giveaways. So
I'm excited to watch that too.
I know it's got some interesting stuff.
I'm sure it does.
I'll give you a secret. So we found Cousin Eddie's RV. Like seriously, the movie prop. So we actually got to play with that on our trip. So
that's awesome.
And not to mention the Christmas Story house. We even stopped by there. I mean, we had some pretty fun stuff. So anyway, good times. Thanks again. Take care, guys, and we'll see you on the flip side.
See you next time.
All right.